Let's dive into the final FieldLink Create menu option, the Pattern menu. In Pattern, we are here to create repeatable patterns that we can use across our project or across all of the projects that we're working on. So, a great example of this is an anchor bolt pattern. If you have to pour anchor bolts into the concrete, lay them out, or to do an anchor bolt survey of the existing anchor bolts that were placed. Here, we're going to create a simple pattern that can be used across the project. We're going to make a 1-foot square off of center, so there will be 12 inches in between each point, and they will be 6 inches by 6 inches off of our grid center. To create the points on our pattern, there are two options. First, we can click on one of these grid intersections. Notice at the bottom of our screen, it gives us that coordinate value. X is -1 and Y is a +1. Remember, horizontally is our x-axis. Our y-axis is our vertical axis. So with a -1x, we are going negatively, or to the left, 1 foot. If we were on a positive x, as seen at the bottom, we would go to the right in the positive direction. Our y is 1 foot up, or positive, from our center point. If we would go down vertically, that would become a -1y. As you can see, each of the intersections I clicked on is at a 1-foot increment. However, in our example, we need to make it 6 inches by 6 inches off of our center, so clicking on these intersections will not work. Let's hit our clear button and start from scratch. To enter specific coordinates from center, we will need to go to our Input Form button at the bottom. Here, we can change our X and our Y. We will look at row spacing in just a moment. Our X coordinate, we can start with 6 inches. Our Y, we can also start with 6 inches. Now let's go back to our grid and see that has been placed positively 6 inches, which is halfway in between that 1 foot mark we saw before, and positively 6 inches on our Y. Now we can hit Add Points. There's our point. Now let's go back into our Edit button. We did a positive X and a positive Y, so now we can do a positive X of 6 inches, and let's do a negative Y of 6 inches. Now we have a positive X, and it's going down, so a negative Y, and we can add that point. Next, we're going to need to create a negative X and a negative Y to come in this quadrant at the bottom left. So we can do -6 inches in X, and we could do a -6 inches in Y. Important to note, it is changing it to decimal feet. So in the same way that I can type in -6 inches, I can also type in -0.5 feet. Now, we have that point in our lower left quadrant and can hit Add Points. The final one we need will be negative on our X, but positive on our Y. Back to our Input Form button. -6 inches on our X and a positive 6 inches on our Y. Now we can click Add Points, and we have a 1-foot square pattern off of center. The last thing we need to do is save our pattern. Let's click Save, and we have to name that pattern. I recommend naming it something very standardized, so if you need to use it on another project, you can easily find and use the pattern again. This is a 1-foot square, which I could write 1-foot square. Or I could write 6" from center, whatever is easy for me to use and find in the future. After I have it named, I will hit Save Pattern. Finally, on this grid menu, we can go to our Input Form button, and we can change the row or column spacing of this grid system that we have present. So, for example, I showed you that if I click on this intersection, it's a 1x1 grid. Same down here, 1x1. So, if I go into my Input Form button, I could change this from any number from 1 to 25. So if I put in 3 and 3 and look at my grid now, let's click on a new intersection, and our X and Y went to 3 and 3. So if you're making a grid on larger scale than we are here, and it would be easier to just click on these grid points, you can put in numbers 1 to 25 to change that grid spacing so that you can create a pattern more easily. Now that I have my pattern saved, I'm going to go to the next option in my pattern screen, which is directly to the right of my yellow illuminated grid screen. In this screen, I can select and place any pattern that I've created in the past. First, I have to select the pattern. Let's select that pattern, and we will need to find it from all of the patterns I've created in the past. So even if I've created a pattern on a different project, it still shows up here in this CPX file type. If you notice at the top of the screen, it says Users, My User, Documents, FieldLink, and Patterns. All of these patterns live in the Documents, FieldLink, Patterns folder in your Windows File Explorer. Here's the 1-foot square that we just created. Let's click it and hit Load Pattern. Pattern loaded successfully. Now all I have to do is place that pattern along a point. The center of our grid here is where the point we click will be located. So if we go back, I have my 1-foot square selected, and I can start clicking on any point that I want to put that pattern around. I can click on as many points as I'd like before hitting Create at the bottom right of your screen. This pattern will be plotted on a straight up and down 90-degree angle. If you do need to spin your pattern around to a different angle, you can do so with the arrows at the bottom. You have preset angles to rotate them of 90, 30, and 45 degrees if you prefer. If you have a specific angle you need to meet, you can input that specific angle at the bottom. After I've matched my angle, then I can hit the Create button at the bottom. This will create all of the points, and you can lay them out on your project.